So now I'm going to do the walk that Nelson did in his last video. I'm not really sure the exact route he took, but I'm going to go down Greenwich Street, into Charles Street and on to Pier 46.
Throughout our lives, we go through multiple journeys, and whether we like it or not, or are ready for it or not, one of these journeys become the very last one. For Nelson, it was that trip to the pier that became his last walk. What remains important is, though, the lessons we are able to take away. One of the things I've learned from his life is having the courage to dream. At the age of 41, he was brave enough to change the direction in his life. He left his full-time job to pursue his dream of running his own cable show.
I've been at my job today. I have a day job that I just quit, but I was there today and I'm...
You just quit?
Yeah, and no, the other day. I quit the other day.
Did you quit?
Yeah.
Even today, in this day and age, people are too afraid to make any changes and choose to remain in their comfort zones by that phase in life. But Nelson showed us that it's never too late to go after what makes you happy.
I don't always know what to think of my life, but at times I know it's interesting and exciting, and I want to share it all with you.
Having said that, we should also realize that life is short. He had the vision, dreams, and resources to make it happen, but sadly ran out of time.
Today is July the 2nd, 1989, and it is definitely a holiday weekend. In the weeks and hopefully years ahead, take you walking with me wherever I go. You can walk in my shoes and others. Just stop flipping when you see my face.
Secondly, there's the story of struggles. Although there's not much documented about their downtimes, but life was not always a bed of roses. Some of the videos do give us a subtle hint on the challenges they faced.
Yeah, I've just been whistling that sort of lonesome tune lately, just kind of wanting to, get off on my own, walk on the beach a little.
Goodness gracious to the human race, you know that? Goodness gracious to the human race, you know that? I've let these men touch all over me for the money. I'm trying to pay my rent, I'm trying to get a new apartment, and I let all these men touch me just because I wanted the money. Isn't that terrible? What else is there? What am I gonna do? I'm in show business, you know?
Despite the setbacks, those who showed resilience and persisted through it all were rewarded with remarkable success. You know what they say, difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations.
Accepting the Emmy is RuPaul.
And all of the dreamers out there, listen, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else? Can I get an amen up in here?
My main goal of this trip was to retrace Nelson's steps, and a huge part of me was chasing that nostalgia we get from watching his videos. But 30 years later, it's a different New York. A lot has changed. The changes that Nelson knew would come about one day.
If you guys can remember, this was the Pathfinder mural. It had all that murals on the wall and the scaffolding, which I guess they used it to do the artwork. So obviously that has been demolished and replaced with this new building. It doesn't look like the 80s at all. It looks quite modern, so quite possible.
Yeah, New York really looks prettier than it has in many, many years, don't you think? But it's a little bit dull. There aren't too many colorful people out. This is a great lane, Charles Lane, one of the oldest lanes in town. Look at this pretty little lane.
Yes, Nelson, it's a very beautiful lane, and it goes right to the pier. And I like the houses on this lane.
So before we get to the pier, I'd like to mention one of those moments where Nelson may have indirectly predicted the harshest tragedy that was about to hit New York. Just another example to show how aware he was of the things happening around him.
Before the Authority of New York and New Jersey welcomes you to the observation deck of the World Trade Center.
You know which has
No. Empire State's slightly taller.
What do you think about the world?
What world?
This world. The Earth. What do you think about the Earth now? I mean, what do you think about the oil slick? What do you think about... what do you think about Bush? What do you think about diseases?
Terrible times are coming, but I think that
what do you think about the homeless people?
I think the world is about to grow up, and it's about time. I think that the world is about to be transformed by a new awareness that it can't escape anymore, and that the closer we come to the brink of disaster, the more we have to acknowledge that we should be ashamed of ourselves for not being more, for not taking better care of ourselves and our situation on this planet.
On our planet.
That the truth that we have to grow up fast is ever more undeniable every second that we live and survive on this planet, and that we are all rushing toward a transfiguration. Probably a catalyst will be the year 2000, even though it's an arbitrary calendar event in a sense. It's a thing that will bind everyone in the world together and make it hard for them to deny that we should really be on another plane altogether than the one we're on if we are to survive at all. Let's go down to the pier.
okay. I remember Nelson used to just cross without looking back then. It never used to be this busy. So we are walking towards Hudson River, and you have to look out for cyclists because they come from both the ways. You know, I kind of found it out the hard way. Yesterday I was about to get bumped by one. How much everything has changed. Nelson talks about the 70s in his last video.
I've always loved these piers on the west side. I think they're slated for destruction, and I think that's a terrible thing. It really is beautiful here on the pier on the west coast of Manhattan. I used to come out here every day, even before I had the dog, back in the early 70s. And at times in the mid and late 70s, this was in the early 80s too, a very, very busy sunbathing area. Everybody came here. In the afternoon, people would come and write poetry and read books and meditate. It was really, really beautiful.
The West Side Piers today are unrecognizable. Initiated from the 90s, it has undergone extensive redevelopment and transformed into Hudson River Park. It has bike trails, turf playgrounds, cafes, paved walkway and water features, and still remains a staple for the LGBT community. I really can't help but wonder, is it about the place or the people? All of Nelson's fans have been connected to New York through him, and because we love him, we found that grit and edginess of the 80s New York so beautiful and romantic.
I mean, really, where else is there but New York? It's the most beautiful of cities, the most beautiful in the world. Everything is here because I am.
But anyways, this is it. This is my tribute to Nelson. I'd like to thank everyone who has watched this series. And before I go, I'd like to end with a quote. We all die. The goal is not to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.